Alrighty, let me just get a few things set and we can get going. Alrighty, here we go. Set this broadcast for live chat. So it's been a while. It's been a really long time. In that time, I managed to have my old laptop, which had everything on it, kind of just run out on me. So I'm on a newer laptop, less ability to broadcast or to record, and more or less in a bit like I don't have as much time as well. But now with the season kind of done, summer's going to be here. I know there's the U20 World Cup going on, and there's the Women's World Cup going on, and there's a couple more international things happening. So it's going to be a little bit of a dull down period, but I wanted to start some things and kind of introduce you guys to what I have planned for the season coming up. And I think a few of you might be interested in participating in one way or another in my fantasy soccer. But I also want to couple that with some tactics stuff. Sorry, it's a little late. I'm eating dinner right now. Saw John Wick 3, so it's kind of late. So the tactic I want to go over right now is not something huge, but it's something I noticed in when I watched last summer. I went to see Manchester City take on Borussia Dortmund. And what I saw actually was pretty cool on the tactical side from Manchester City. Borussia Dortmund played a very 4-2-3-1 style kind of tactic, which is something that I showed you guys before. They played that to a T, but I wanted to kind of go over what Manchester City have. So first, let's just set up Dortmund here. So Dortmund have their keeper. We have 4 in the back here. Got 2 defensive midfielders, attacking midfielder with 2 wingers, and a striker. So this was how, you know what? I'm going to make these smaller just so I have a little more room to work. So 2 defensive mids, or 4 back line, 2 defensive mids, an attacking mid, 2 out wide, and a striker. So Manchester City, what I was able to notice, they only had, for one, they had Joe Hart in goal for one of those halves, but it was mostly their back line, or their youth system. They did have 3 notable names. Phil Foden, Zinchenko, the Ukrainian that Pep Guardiola has been using as his left back, and Riyad Mahrez. So what they had set up in is a 4-2-3-1 as well. So you had your back line, and it looks like they were kind of matching up very similar to what Borussia Dortmund had. Center forward. So things of note, Mahrez was here. Foden, Phil Foden, he's been coming into the team, was here. And then Zinchenko, I'm not going to bother spelling his name, was actually lined up right here. So he was lined up as a defensive mid. And it's critical to note where these guys were, because some of them were changing a lot. So now that we've got them kind of established, let's go over what happens. So first few minutes, they're kind of playing the same way. You can see this defender here was getting forward a lot. And the whole reason for that was Foden was kind of pinching in more, and you could see Zinchenko kind of coming in to help. But they still defensively would recover back to this same position where they've lost the ball. They come back into this. And then with about 15 minutes or so passed, what happened was Mahrez took up a further a higher up position. So he ended up around here. The forward kind of pushed a little bit higher. This midfielder ended up sliding further out to provide inside support in this channel right here. Now, what's key to note about that is when you look at a 4-2-3-1, if this winger is, I note, like you split here, if this winger occupies the player, comes through and helps in this zone. But because Mahrez was constantly here, you would expect this player to come up. But this defender actually stayed. He stayed back, and he kept the back three the entire time, no matter which side the ball was on. So this midfielder would pop up in these positions, and this defender, this defensive midfielder, would also pop up here as well. So this entire spot right here was being supported by these two defensive midfielders. And the reason that they were doing that was Foden over here actually pinched in and permanently stayed in here. So he ended up popping up here, and he played like a second attacking midfielder coming through. And this defender ended up pushing up and was playing a lone winger right here. And he was all by himself on the wing, and Man City were overloading this side with Foden kind of providing a little bit here, and this player kind of providing a one-on-one constantly attack-wise. And the key to all of this was Zinchenko right here. So Zinchenko, when they had the ball, would fill in the same responsibilities as these two defensive midfields. So this guy would push forward a little more. So as the other defensive midfielder, Zinchenko would kind of come back. He might pop up in the midfield, pop it around a little bit. He might go over here a little bit if the ball comes in, and just kind of rotate and work the ball around. This midfielder, this defender here, stood up. So when they lost the ball, this defender, now turned midfielder, would stay there, and Zinchenko would pop back in and play this left back role, while this defensive midfielder would then slide over, and it would be a 4-1, and then this defender would kind of pop down. Foden would pop down a little bit, so they'd have a 4-1, and then 2 in front, and then Mahrez and the center forward would kind of be here for instant relief. And then if it goes to Mahrez goes on a one-on-one. You got a little bit more support coming to him. If it goes to this forward, you've got this attacking midfielder in support, and you've got Foden, who's right here, who's just popping right back up to help out with some of the support there. So I thought that was a really cool, unique tactical aspect that I saw from Zinchenko. And it's kind of translated over as well into what Man City have used him as with that left back role. So Zinchenko can play in this defensive midfield role, which is almost perfect for what they would need, especially with Kyle Walker actually going forward. You could see Walker kind of ends up in this position here, and he's not really here. So he ends up here, and then these defensive players slide over a little bit, and so does Zinchenko. But Zinchenko can also push forward as well and provide a little bit of gap here to partner alongside Fernandinho or whoever else is this other defensive mid. So he can offer more once the ball gets past, this instant defensive line right here. Once it gets past there, The two center backs can kind of hold back and keep the ball and recycle it through. Fernandinho can be here. Zinchenko can be here. They can also be options as well to kind of keep play going, keep it moving. And then you've got the likes of like De Bruyne, Silva, Bernardo Silva. They're typical midfielders in here. You got a center forward, and you've got the two wingers in here, along with Kyle Walker coming on the outside. This player can kind of move around. He has a lot more freedom. Both of these players actually have a lot more freedom to go wide, and these players have more freedom on the outside to cut in. And I thought that was a pretty cool tactic that you could see from Guardiola and his entire squad. So that's just kind of a brief look at what that was. So now I want to kind of go over the other aspect. The first, that will be something that I kind of go a little bit more in depth with tactics. But what I want to do now is kind of show you guys what I have going, and perhaps some of you would be interested in participating. I don't know if I'd want to have specific fans helping out, or if you just have like the channel and have people from all over the channel kind of decide how they want to do this. So from here, I have the teams that to date I know of. Union Berlin won. So we've got that settled. We've got all the teams but one. There's one more playoff game for Serie A. And we're still waiting on that final game from Ligue 1. But these are the top 5 leagues. So what I'm going to be doing for this summer is kind of looking at and going over the valuations for these clubs. We've got all of these clubs, and the whole point of this, as you'll see on my sheet right here, is to more or less work as a stock market in order to try and get the best, the highest value at the end of the season. So the way this works is you're starting off with $100, euros, whatever. I just put it as cash. So you start off with that, and then you make transactions. So the way it works is you buy different stocks of these teams as they come through. So I'll be setting these price stocks later and through live videos, so you can see the reasoning behind setting certain things. But you go through the weeks and you buy and you sell the different stocks and teams. Now, the way teams improve their stock is by winning. So if you buy a stock of Liverpool at $20 and Liverpool win, they go up to $21. And now when you sell that Liverpool stock, you bought it at 20, but you end up having $21. So you just continue to go through the season. And then we see at the end of the season who has the highest amount of dollars, and they would be the ones who end up winning. So that's kind of how it goes. So the whole point is to kind of just bet on which team will win. Now, the incentive here that that you may or may not pick up on is the fact that you can buy more than one stock of a team. So you're not limited to buying one stock of Liverpool or one stock of Man City or one stock of Burnley. You're allowed to buy multiple stocks of teams. So a little bit more mathematically, yes, Man City are probably going to win, and you could probably spend, I don't know, $30, $40 on their one stock. But if you see a game like, West Ham against Brighton at West Ham, and it looks like West Ham might win, well, if West Ham stock is 10, you could buy 4 stocks or 4 shares of West Ham, so that if they win and Man City win, your $40 in Man City only ends up getting you $1, whereas your 4 your four shares in West Ham end up giving you $4, and for that same price, you've gained $3 extra. So it doesn't necessarily benefit you to be buying the big teams and just kind of keeping it there. It's safe, but it's not a guarantee that you'll win, especially if people keep track of the lower leagues. So I put in all of these teams here to kind of start. So what we'll be doing is kind of looking at some of these different teams. We'll go through the current value of their team, as well as what Soccer Manager or FIFA have their players ranked as currently, so we can kind of get a better valuation of their team and how they stack up throughout the league. And then we'll also have to use the transfer window and see how the teams are buying or selling their players and going through. But the rules are no stock can drop below 1. Everything has to have a little bit of a value. And then for the starting price, no stock can be above 25. 25 is the maximum that a stock can be at. And from what I had thought of it beforehand, PSG would be the first one that I put the stock at 25. They're almost a guaranteed win the league again this year, or this upcoming year. I don't even know what transfer moves, but unless they're Middle Eastern oil tycoons sell the club, they're going to be at 25. The other one was Juventus, and for right now, I am going to put them at a 25. They're still solid. They have a little bit of questions with their coach, but for right now, I think I can see them as a 25. Munich, I'm putting at a 23. They have some pretty solid players coming in. They have a new left back and a new right back. They still have some defensive issues. They still have some wingers that they have to kind of sort out with Ribery and Robin coming through. But the way they've just been so dominant in the league, along with the rebuild, I'm kind of justifying that there. Barcelona, I'm going to put at 23 right now. Yes, they're reliant on Messi. Yes, they lost the Copa del Rey. They had a complete meltdown. But in reality, they only kind of melted down over 2 games, and both of those were not in La Liga. They have been very solid in La Liga, and that's the only thing that we kind of go off of here. So I'm comfortable keeping them where they're at. I don't know where I'd actually want to look into Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid, since both of them are going to have very busy transfer windows, and I don't feel comfortable setting their price yet. Manchester City and Liverpool, I am comfortable setting Manchester City at 23 and Liverpool at 22. Both of those are a little high. The only reason I set Liverpool 1 point below is simply due to the fact that Man City did a draw and beat Liverpool last year, and they also ended up winning the league by a point. Liverpool only ended up losing 1 game all last season, but Man City did, I feel, deserve a little bit higher on the status there. Borussia Dortmund, I think I'm comfortable setting them at 21. Yes, they still have some problems with finishing out games, but they did manage to bring in Bayer Leverkusen's Brandt, and as well the younger Hazard brother from Mönchengladbach. So that should be pretty solid in how everything goes there. I'm not going to really touch any of the other Italian teams. There's just so much up in the air. Napoli, probably going to end up selling 1 or 2 of their big strikers, and if that happens, unlikely to know how everything else kind of turns out, especially with how they spend their money. Inter Milan and AC Milan will probably end up needing coaches next year. I don't know who's going to take over them, so it's kind of up in the air. Roma, again, it's hard to judge these teams right now. I want to do a little bit more research, but this is kind of just a test at first, so you guys have an idea of what I'm going to be doing with these live streams, so that maybe more of you can join when I get a little bit more of a schedule for these. And then I do not want to touch anything else in Ligue 1. Lyon finished well, Lille finished well, but they're bound to sell so many players right afterwards. I mean, Marseille made it to the Europa League finals last year, and they did pretty well in Ligue 1, and then they kind of just sold all their players and barely survived. They didn't even put up a fight in Europa League. So all these French teams, it always depends on who they end up buying and who they end up selling. But Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, Manchester United, those all have a bunch of transfers coming in. And I kind of want to look at their squad right now, especially with who they've confirmed. Chelsea are more on the selling. I know they have their transfer ban still kind of intact. I don't know if they're going to appeal that or if they're just going to ride out the storm. And depending on how that goes, Hazard is rumored to leave, but there's no confirmation yet. So, I mean, they're a completely different team with Hazard. And then if they have the transfer ban or not, that completely decides everything else. I know they've signed Pulisic, but again, the third winger at Dortmund being the only person coming in, and then a lot of youth coming back from loan. It'll be interesting to see if they buy or if they use any of them, or if they continue to send them out on loan. So that's it for this first episode. The next episode will have the tactic that I kind of want to go over. I want to go over more specific positions in 4-2-3-1. So I guess we can start going over those. So heads up for that. And then also comment on this video below if you would like to participate or as an actual player in this fantasy, or if you would be fine just being like the channel. And we'll see how it goes. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.